Hello everyone, this is Bethlehem Atfield. Welcome to the podcast Journey to Ethiopia with a Story. In this episode, I'll be reading an excerpt of a creative nonfiction book entitled Yeferent Mist, written by Eskedar Girmay. The excerpt is translated by me and the writer Eskedar. A few years ago, I went out for drinks with a group of people I met through work. There was a relaxed vibe where some casually talked in a group while the rest of us chit-chatted in pairs. One thing kind of led to another, and the guy sitting next to me said,
"By the way, I want to ask you something."
Okay, I responded respectfully. When he gave me a sign to come closer to him, I noticed he was lowering his voice not to be heard by others. I leaned closer, eager to hear what he wanted to say.
Foreigners' wives, they crave for Ethiopian men, right?
He asked. Not believing what I heard, I said, "What?"
You heard me. By the way, we have started doing it too, you know.
He bragged with pride. Started what? I was confused, so I looked at him, expecting an explanation. The lust in his eyes needed no further explanation. I could tell he was imagining undressing me and running his hands all over my body. I frowned. I couldn't help but wonder if we started doing it too was a reference to Subhat's novel Tukusat. Although I've heard a lot about this man earlier, I have never met him in person before. I remember I once heard people saying he stole his wife from another man. I also remember thinking how a woman can be stolen like an object. I even argued how a woman who willingly chose to be with one man instead of another could be considered stolen. He also had a reputation of being a hard-to-get man. But if he was interested in a specific woman, they say he would always find a way to catch her, like a fish. I have also noticed a woman chosen by him was considered lucky. His insolent question made me feel like I had a sign on my forehead that says, "Dear Ethiopian men, on behalf of all women married to foreigners, feel free to try me like a dish in front of you." I took a quick look at his wedding ring and asked, "Are you married?"
"Oh yes,"
he replied. He glanced at his wedding ring proudly and held my gaze while taking a sip of his wine in style. He has no idea about how much I know about his personal life, so I asked, "Is she a foreigner?"
"No way! What do you take me for?"
He stopped laughing as he said,
"She is actually pure Ethiopian."
He then leaned towards me and added,
"Didn't we lose enough of our women? We shall get all of you back. Cheers to that,"
he said, raising his glass high. I neither raised my glass nor laughed at his lame joke. I waited until he put his wine glass down on the table and said, "If your wife is not a foreigner and you missed nothing, why did you cheat on her with other Ethiopian women?"
"What?"
he exclaimed. I noticed his nervous laugh was a cover for his embarrassment, as he looked around to make sure nobody heard our conversation. He then took another sip from his glass and joined the other group's discussion. Needless to mention, he didn't even take a glance at me after that. Had he carried on with his nonsense, though? My next question to him would have been, for argument's sake, let's say a woman married to a foreigner cheats because she misses Ethiopian men, as you said. But how come your wife left another Ethiopian man for you? Although infidelity is not something that can be justified, if one chooses to be unfaithful in a relationship, I believe that only that person knows what the reason behind it is. I usually avoid such rumors because I believe it's not my place to be involved or to judge. So it was unusual for me to be dragged into such a petty banter, But I couldn't find a better way to respond to his outrageous remark. The way he tried to take out a speck from someone's eye while he had a log in his really annoyed me. So, although I had no right or desire to judge the guy's personal life, I chose to react in an equally brash manner to teach him a lesson. To be honest, although I had come across men like him before, I never responded in this way because their brazenness usually left me speechless. What vexed me the most about this guy was an earlier remark he made to another woman in the group. This woman is known as the mistress of a very rich and famous man in the city. I heard him tell her how lucky she was. This guy had higher regards to a kept woman by a rich Ethiopian man than me, a lawfully married woman, to a foreigner. People like this guy don't only assume that foreigners' wives miss the Habesha men's distinct sexual experience, but they also have the audacity to expect to hear about the foreign experience. Furthermore, the man's brag, we have started doing it too, implies some kind of competition. He did not expect his sexual bravado to be rebuffed in such a personal manner. I believe he only realized that his earlier assumption was wrong when I asked what he was missing from his Ethiopian wife. At least the next time he meets a foreigner's wife, I'm sure he won't ask such a trivial question. The real reason that women who are seen with foreign men in public are openly labeled as prostitutes or opportunistic is racism. This is evident when one witnesses how a mistress of a rich Ethiopian man receives accolade instead of judgment. Could the reflection from her diamonds possibly have bedazzled their ordinary sense of morality? In this case, the only concern is when the woman shares her good fortune, how far will it reach into the community, not how she got it. So, the chance to meet and befriend the mistress of a rich Ethiopian man is considered good fortune. If we are lucky enough to get close to such a woman, she becomes even more precious than when we knew her from afar. We even start to get anxious over what possible harm might come to her when she drops us with her luxury car and speeds off. If the famous person happens to be filthy rich, the fact that he's married and has children would not tarnish his mistress' reputation. Society seems to have come to a consensus that the main standard for a guy's prestigious status is his wealth. So, neither this famous guy's age nor the age difference between him and his mistress seem to matter. A rich man's mistress is usually the kind of girl that the neighborhood's young men coveted all their lives but had to regretfully watch as she becomes a famous mistress instead. She is the kind of girl that aunties envy and wish their daughters would get as lucky. The kind of girl that the whole neighborhood mentions as a role model for their young daughters. She becomes a demigod with many disciples. Her impeccable kindness, how she improved her parents' and siblings' lives, how she generously treats her friends, from the expensive gifts to holidays in Dubai, her ability to have breakfast in Addis and dine in Paris in the same evening make her a national celebrity. In the rare occasions that such a celebrity wisely invests her money and contributes to the national economy, not only will she be enthroned in the public's heart, but also gets praised by the government. A woman who marries an ordinary foreigner, on the other hand, is not such a source of glamour and benefits. Imagine the challenges of culture shock when she goes to live in her husband's country. The time it takes to get a decent job, the time it takes to raise children, and the time it takes to get her citizenship if she's lucky. So her family complain about her failure to support them. Instead, she keeps having mixed-race children. They tease her brother, forget it, Christ will come before she manages to process your visa to immigrate. Disheartened, the brother decides to illegally migrate to South Africa. The younger sister goes to an Arab country and makes money, comes back with little savings, and ends up being a single mother. So the woman keeps getting asked why she married a foreigner, if not to support her family and community. She keeps getting blamed for the failure of her siblings instead of their shared laziness. Never feeling at home at her husband's country, she prays for the day she can make a difference in her family's life back home. She is a woman trapped in between two worlds who needs empathy because of her unfulfilled dreams, but never gets one. Although the circumstances of women who marry foreigners are diverse, there is certainly one common aspect that they all share. This is the assumption by some people in the society that marrying a foreigner is tantamount to disowning your country. This assumption leads to silly questions like, if you love your national identity, why did you marry a foreigner? This assumption also leads these same people to conclude that the women only married foreigners for economic gain, that the women were basically selling themselves and deserved to be insulted. I have personally experienced several similar judgments hurled at me from people I know, as well as from total strangers. Although the passage of time and the frequency of these questions have made these prejudices hurt less, I would like to share with you how I have dealt with a few other cases to give you more insight. Thank you for listening. Please read the discussion points under the description of this story. We would like to hear your views and any comments you may have. If you'd like to listen to more stories as soon as they come out, please subscribe to this podcast. I would also appreciate it if you click on the like button and share with family and friends so we get more listeners. Until the next story, goodbye.